You're listening to the AI Executive Brief, and I'm Stephen Forte. Today's episode is the Musk Playbook. Today we'll talk about why 45,000 tech layoffs aren't a crisis, they're a blueprint. And the sharpest operators in the business are following it on purpose. Let's start with the number that's dominating every headline this month. 45,363. That's how many tech workers have been laid off globally so far in 2026, according to data from Rational FX. At this pace, we're looking at 250,000 cuts by year end. And here's what makes this wave different from every previous one. Roughly 1 in 5 of those layoffs, over 9,000, are explicitly tied to AI and automation, not buried in a restructuring memo, not implied, stated outright on the record. Companies aren't even pretending this is about cyclical belt tightening anymore. They're saying out loud that machines now do what these people used to do. Now, if you're reading the coverage, the framing is predictable. Crisis, carnage, bloodbath, the usual vocabulary of panic. But I want to offer a different lens, because what I see isn't destruction. What I see is refounding. The most strategically sophisticated leaders in tech are looking at their organizations and deciding deliberately to rebuild them from the ground up around AI. And they have a precedent that proved it works. October 2022, Elon Musk closes his $44 billion acquisition of Twitter. Within 6 months, he cuts the workforce from roughly 7,500 to 1,500, an 80% reduction. The press called it reckless, irresponsible, suicidal. Every pundit with a LinkedIn account predicted the platform would collapse within weeks. Servers would crash, content moderation would disintegrate, advertisers would flee permanently, and some of those things did happen. Briefly, but the platform kept running. New features shipped faster than they ever had under the old regime. The company went from $3 billion in negative cash flow to approximately breaking even. Musk launched X Money with Visa, expanded into financial services, and by 2024 had rehired back to around 2,800, but on his terms with his culture at his pace. The lesson that every CEO in tech absorbed, whether they admitted it publicly or not, was devastating in its simplicity. You can cut radically and the company doesn't just survive, it can accelerate. That lesson is now being applied at scale. And the best case study right now is Jack Dorsey at Block. Block just cut 4,000 jobs, nearly half its 10,000 person workforce, in a single announcement. Not because Block was struggling, quite the opposite. Fourth quarter adjusted earnings per share came in at 65 cents, up from 47 cents a year earlier. Gross profit climbed 24%. Cash App gross profit surged 33%. This was a company firing on all cylinders, and Dorsey still took the machete to it. His reasoning stated plainly in his internal memo: intelligence tools have transformed the essence of building and managing a company. A much smaller team equipped with these tools can achieve more and perform better. What's striking is his philosophical commitment to doing it in one move. Dorsey explicitly rejected the slow bleed approach, the quarterly trims, the quiet hiring freezes, the passive attrition that most CEOs hide behind. Repeated layoffs can damage morale, disrupt focus, and erode the trust that customers and shareholders have in our leadership, he wrote. So he chose the sword over the scalpel, one decisive cut, restructuring costs between $450 and $500 million. And the market's verdict? Block's stock surged 25%. Evercore ISI analysts called it a seminal moment. Dorsey even telegraphed what's coming for everyone else. I don't believe we are the first to recognize this. Most companies are lagging behind. In the coming year, I believe most companies will arrive at a similar conclusion. Now consider Patrick Collison at Stripe, who's running a slightly different version of the same playbook. Stripe cut 300 roles, 3.5% of headcount, across operations, product, and engineering. Modest by comparison. But here's the twist. Stripe is simultaneously planning to hire 10,000 people by the end of the year. A net 17% growth in headcount. This isn't about shrinking, it's about reshaping. Collison is replacing one kind of workforce with another, realigning the entire organization around AI native capabilities. His vision for what software becomes is genuinely provocative. Software should be like pizza, cooked right then and there at the moment of use, meaning AI should generate custom software in real time, tailored to each user, each interaction. And Stripe has the scale to make this vision matter. $1.9 trillion in total payment volume in 2025, up 34%. Valued at $159 billion, up 74% from $91.5 billion. They power 80% of the NASDAQ 100, 78% of the Forbes AI 50, 90% of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. They've launched machine payments for AI agents, stablecoin micropayments, and partnered with OpenAI to build shopping directly into ChatGPT. And this is a company rebuilding the plumbing of the global economy around AI and restructuring its workforce to match. Then there's WiseTech Global, where CEO Zubin Apu is being perhaps the most blunt of all. He's cutting 2,000 jobs, 30% of the company's workforce, over 18 months, with some teams reduced by half. His reasoning is the kind of statement that would have been unthinkable from a public company CEO even a year ago. The era of manually writing code as the core act of engineering is over. Co-founder Richard White backed him up. Individually, people can do far, far more work with AI than they could have done 9 months ago. And White's pitch to customers is even more aggressive. WiseTech's AI agents will help their customers cut labor costs by 50% within 2 years. And this isn't just CEO intuition running ahead of the data. Goldman Sachs has the numbers. Companies that discussed AI on their fourth quarter earnings calls have already cut job openings by 12%, compared to 8% for companies overall. Goldman predicts AI will eventually displace 6 to 7% of the entire U.S. workforce, roughly 11 million jobs. Under more aggressive assumptions, that number could reach 14%. The median productivity gain they're measuring is around 30%, with AI expected to raise U.S. labor productivity by approximately 15% when fully adopted. The highest risk categories, programmers, accountants, auditors, legal assistants, customer service, these aren't blue-collar jobs being automated. These are the knowledge workers sitting in your offices right now. But here's the critical nuance. Not everyone who swings the axe gets rewarded. Pinterest cut 675 jobs, 15% of its workforce, explicitly calling it an AI-forward strategy. The stock dropped, investors didn't buy it, and that tells you something important. The market is sophisticated enough to distinguish between genuine strategic conviction and cosmetic restructuring. When Dorsey cuts, investors see a leader who genuinely believes AI changes everything and is willing to bet the company on it. When Pinterest cuts, investors see a company borrowing someone else's language without the underlying transformation to back it up. The playbook only works when the conviction is real, and the results are already showing it. So what does this mean for leaders running companies? I think it means we're in a window, a narrow one, where the leaders who act with conviction will separate themselves from the pack. And I'll tell you what I'm seeing on the ground. A year ago, most of the conversations I was having were about velocity. How fast can we ship AI? How fast can we deploy it? That's shifting. More and more of the companies I'm working with now have an explicit KPI. Reduce general and administrative headcount by 40%. Marketing, customer service, accounting, HR, inbound sales, not someday, now. And these aren't panicked companies. They're the forward-looking ones. This isn't a slow transition. Dorsey said most companies will reach the same conclusion within a year. The Goldman data says AI-forward companies are already behaving differently in their hiring. WiseTech is telling customers to expect 50% labor cost reductions. The question is not whether this refounding moment reaches your industry. It will. The question is whether you'll be the one leading it, reshaping your organization deliberately on your own terms in one bold move, or whether you'll be scrambling to react after your competitors already have. That's the AI Executive Brief for Friday, March 13th, 2026. I'm Stephen Forte. If this was useful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, stay sharp.